Hidden deep in the archives of the Library of Congress lies a film few have seen in decades. It starts with a hauntingly deceptive calm. A row of suburban houses stands beneath an impossibly blue sky. Yet something is off. Suddenly, a searing white flash blinds the screen. When the image returns, a massive mushroom cloud looms, climbing up to the heavens. The blast wave races toward the houses. The one on the right erupts into an inferno, thick black smoke spiraling upward through the gaping hole where the roof once stood. The house on the left follows suit, engulfed in flames as its frame collapses in on itself. Yet the house in the middle remains inexplicably intact. With a calm yet menacing tone, a voice asks a single chilling question, quote, "Which of these is your house?" The nuclear age. By the 1950s, the fear of nuclear Armageddon was a part of everyday life. Each day, the United States and the Soviet Union edged closer to perfecting weapons capable of erasing entire cities in the blink of an eye. Amid the threat of mutual destruction, the American government sought to prepare its citizens for the unthinkable. While the Cold War drove families from crowded cities to the apparent safety of suburban enclaves, the U.S. Public Health Service began relocating specialists from small towns to major urban centers to devise emergency medical plans for a national attack. Ominous pamphlets began circulating, filled with stark instructions for survival, evacuation shelters, the dangers of radioactive fallout, and even grim details about emergency childbirth and mortuary services. On March 17, 1953, people watched in horror on their television screens as atomic explosions went off on American soil. In Nevada, the Federal Civil Defense Administration, also known as the FCDA, conducted a nuclear weapons test designed to show the public what to expect if a 16-kiloton bomb detonated in their backyards. This was Operation Doorstep, a macabre experiment staged in a fictional town, populated with automobiles, wood-frame houses, bomb shelters, and mannequins depicting diverse families, some staged in everyday scenes, others located in basements, bracing for impact. When the bomb fell, destruction consumed the landscape. Homes were obliterated, vehicles twisted and melted. The FDCA coldly concluded that anyone on the upper floors of the houses would have lost their lives, if not by flying debris, then by the slow agony of radiation sickness. The devastation was depicted in a booklet sold to the public, its eerie photographs capturing the blast's aftermath. Among them was an unsettling image, a mannequin staring blankly through a window, its plastic face frozen in a lifeless expression. Beneath the image, the caption read, quote, "This mannequin can only stay in the position in which he was placed, staring through the window at the coming disaster." But the true horror lay in what the test revealed. Radioactive fallout from nuclear explosions could poison the air, water, and soil, extending the reach of destruction far beyond ground zero. Even those far from the target zone could not escape. The reality was, there was no true safety from nuclear war. Yet the government clung to the promise that survival was possible, insisting the American people could save themselves from the apocalypse if they did exactly what they were told. The Cursed Film. In 1954, another atomic film reached American screens. Titled The House in the Middle, this bizarre 12-minute documentary claimed to hold the key to survival in the event of nuclear war. Its message was simple yet unsettling. Survival depended not on advanced defense strategies, but on the condition of your home. Set against the Nevada desert, the film used real footage from an explosive test from Operation Upshot Knothole, specifically the Encore Effects test conducted on May 8, 1953. The Mark 6D bomb, a lethal upgrade to the infamous Fat Man dropped on Nagasaki, was detonated from 19,000 feet by a B-50 Superfortress, unleashing a 37-kiloton explosion over a series of targets in the area to teach Americans how to be prepared for it. The narrator of The House in the Middle assured that nuclear devastation could be exacerbated or mitigated by how well a property was maintained. To prove this, the film showcased a few experiments. First came the fences, 5 structures in varying states of upkeep. Neglected fences, littered with debris and dry paper, ignited instantly when exposed to the explosion's searing heat. Flames tore through them like paper in a furnace. The freshly painted fences, however, resisted the fire far longer, their surfaces charring slowly. Next, the experiment moved indoors. 2 houses, identical in construction, but vastly different in cleanliness, were subjected to the blast. One house was spotless, its surfaces gleaming and free of clutter. The other was chaotic, with old newspapers piled in corners and debris scattered across countertops. When the bomb struck, the messy house erupted in flames, its contents fueling a fire that consumed everything within. By contrast, the tidy house suffered only minor damage, its interior largely intact. But the film's climax came with the titular house in the middle. 3 homes stood side by side, each reflecting a different state of upkeep. The first looked neglected and was surrounded by flammable debris. The second appeared moderately maintained, but unpainted. The third stood pristine and freshly painted white. When the bomb hit, the houses on either side were swiftly engulfed in flames, collapsing into smoldering ruins. The house in the middle, however, stood as if untouched by the explosion, its crisp white paint showing only faint signs of scorching. The narrator's voice cuts through, declaring, quote, "Yes, the White House in the middle survived an atomic heat flash. These civil defense tests have proven how important upkeep is to our homes and towns. Now it's up to us, the people, to take decisive action." Fear campaign. In its opening credits, the house in the middle claims to have been produced by the National Clean-Up, Paint-Up, Fix-Up Bureau, an unusual-sounding organization. The truth, however, was far stranger. This bureau was entirely fictional, a clever invention of the National Paint, Varnish, and Lacquer Association, a trade group with a vested economic interest in persuading Americans to invest in frequent house repairs and fresh coats of paint. At its core, the film was a brilliant piece of marketing, disguised as civil defense. Architectural historian David Montaigne observed that the film portrayed how, quote, "In contrast to the vulnerability of neglected neighborhoods, the tidy streets, yards, and living rooms of the middle class were spaces safe from the ravages of atomic urban renewal." The message was clear. The difference between survival and destruction lies in the effort homeowners put into maintaining their properties. The pristine houses and fences that resisted fire may have been coated in fire-retardant paint, while the neglected homes and cluttered yards seemed almost engineered for disaster. Dry paper, debris, and unkempt wood caught fire as though they were designed to burn. Everything in the film's visual narrative aligned perfectly with its underlying agenda. However, this wasn't just a calculated marketing campaign preying on the public's fear. It was likely also a piece of government propaganda to ease the population. By partnering with the Federal Civil Defense Administration, the film aimed to make survival seem attainable, even in the face of incomprehensible devastation. It fostered the belief that individual effort, tidying a yard or repainting a house, could make a meaningful difference. In doing so, it offered a fragile illusion of control, one desperately needed in the era of nuclear escalation. By the film's conclusion, the narrator delivers a reassuring yet bizarre decree, quote, "Beauty, cleanliness, health, and safety are the 4 basic doctrines that protect homes and cities." The voice implores Americans to rally in their communities, organizing local cleanup campaigns, painting homes, repairing properties, and planting gardens. These techniques, however earnest, would have done little to protect against a nuclear strike's devastating power. But at the time, they may have provided a psychological lifeline for a population gripped by the relentless fear of inevitable doom. Near miss. The house in the middle would not be the last time nuclear paranoia would grip the American public during the 1950s. As the decade progressed, a series of incidents brought the nation dangerously close to catastrophe. On May 22, 1957, a routine flight over New Mexico turned into a nightmare. A B-36 bomber, carrying a Mark 17 hydrogen bomb, one of the largest and most devastating nuclear devices ever built, experienced a malfunction near Kirtland Air Force Base. Without warning, the bomb, a 42,000-pound giant, slipped through the bay doors, plummeting nearly 2,000 feet to the desert floor. As it struck the earth, the conventional explosives inside detonated, discharging a blast that carved a crater 25 feet deep and 12 feet wide. By sheer luck, the nuclear core had been removed for transport. The following year, 1958, proved even more harrowing, as 3 separate incidents raised alarms about the handling of nuclear weapons. On February 5th, high above Georgia, a B-47 bomber collided mid-air with an F-86 fighter jet. In an attempt to avoid detonation upon a crash landing, the bomber's pilot jettisoned his payload, a Mark 15 nuclear bomb. The weapon plummeted into the depths of the Savannah River, where it sank without a trace. On March 11th, a B-47 bomber, en route to the United Kingdom, accidentally released its weapon over a quiet residential neighborhood in Florence, South Carolina. Fortunately, only the bomb's conventional explosives detonated upon impact. Still, the impact left a gaping crater 70 feet wide and 35 feet deep. 4 months later, on July 28th, in Abilene, Texas, as an aircraft prepared for takeoff, a fire erupted on board. The pilot ejected just in time, abandoning the aircraft and its nuclear warhead. Moments later, the plane crashed, and while the nuclear payload did not detonate, the conventional explosives inside made the entire region shake. Each incident added to the growing national unease. By the end of the 1950s, the public lived in a state of constant nuclear paranoia, their hopes of survival reduced to obscure instructions and the false reassurances of government propaganda and films like The House in the Middle.